So how may we eliminate the enemy within? What's strange is that so many people seem to always be at war with themselves, with their minds. There's some kind of inner conflict going on. It's easy to get so caught up in this so-called war that we forget to take a step back and ask ourselves, why is it even going on in the first place? Who are the two opposing sides? Am I on one side and not on the other side? Or are both sides me? Or better yet, are neither sides me? Because if you think about it, the thoughts that are arising, the battles going on, who is there perceiving those things? Who is perceiving the thoughts come and go? Who is perceiving that inner conflict? Is the witness of these thoughts fighting the battle? Is it in conflict? Are you the voice that's speaking in your head, or are you the one that's listening? And if you're the one who's speaking the voice, then who's the one listening? And what you will find is that as you begin developing a kind of separation between the voice in your head and yourself, what you'll realize is that you are identifying and giving power and energy to this voice, but it was never really you. We have to understand that our thoughts, what we think about on a perpetual basis, this will give rise to how we feel. If we're feeling negative all the time, then the easiest way to begin changing this is by focusing your attention on your thoughts. Because most people are just going through their life with a never-ending stream of thoughts going through their head at all times. And then they wonder why they feel anxious, even depressed sometimes, or irritated. The more we can pay attention to our thoughts and remove our identification and attachment with them, the less power they have over us. Because we stop feeding them our power, our energy. It was Muji that once said, "No thought has any power over us, but we give power to the thought with our belief and identification with it." So at any moment you can take your power back. But it's often just a habit that we get continuously pulled back into the story and drama of life. The story in our heads about the reality we are experiencing. And if you pay attention, you'll see yourself constantly getting pulled into this kind of mental storm. The more you can begin questioning this, creating some space in your mind, then eventually you'll become free from the habit of getting pulled into all these different directions. Pulled by your thoughts, pulled around by your emotions and other people. If there was a so-called enemy within, it would likely be our own minds. But not just any part of our minds, because we can understand that there are both positive and negative forces in the external world, but also within. And so there will always be a force that's pulling you down, and there's always a force that's trying to lift you up. These two voices, the two wolves within us who are at war, and it's whichever one we feed that wins. But I prefer not to go down that route of looking at things this way. Because what you will find in the highest truth is an underlying unity behind all things. dark and the light, the good and the bad. These are one thing appearing as separate. And so the greatest way to eliminate the enemy within is simply to realize that there is no enemy. A lot of people say that one of the greatest tricks that demons or the devil uses is to get you to believe that they don't exist. And here we will find a paradox, because this will be true or false depending on where you are standing, from where your perspective is coming from. If you think about it, if you're down here, then you are at risk for becoming a slave to the demonic forces, to the negative forces. But once you start transcending to higher states of being and awareness, you'll realize that there really are no demons. There is no enemy. I like to say there are no demons, only angels in disguise. Because the forces of evil are merely a tool to serve the light, to serve what is good. But it is because we have so much fear and belief in negativity, in evil, that we fall under their tyranny. We must realize that all experiences, both good and bad, are there to serve our highest purpose. We like to think that hell is a bad place that we would all like to avoid. And this is true when you're down here. Because when you're down there, you're still identified with what you are not. And the purpose of hell is to burn off all that you are not. So when we are so heavily identified with our bodies, with our minds, with our egos, with the person we believe ourselves to be, when we experience hell, we are experiencing burning alive. Because we have identified with that which is burning. But in truth, that which we are does not burn. It cannot be touched. No experience has any effect over it whatsoever. But that doesn't mean anything so long as you are still identified with the lesser self. Because when you have a higher level of awareness, it's very clear to see the purpose of hell or the purpose of the devil. You are not cowering in fear. You are not a slave, because you see through the illusion. The devil only attacks who you believe you are. The mind will only attack your personal identity. It always knows exactly the right things to say to get your attention. It always knows the right people to use to trigger you, to get you emotional, to get you to react with anger, with hate. But you see, for somebody who is on the spiritual path, for a seeker of truth, they look beyond the surface level of what's going on. Most people are too caught in the drama of the story. If somebody triggers me and they make me angry, I take it personal. This person did this thing to me. And so I'm caught up in the story of myself. And so I become a victim and blame the other person for doing this thing to me. And you're just caught in this cycle of suffering. And it's all nonsense. That doesn't mean we don't experience terrible things. That doesn't mean we aren't actually victims. But for somebody who seeks the truth, they ask, who is getting triggered? Who is getting angry? And why? the trigger or the argument, the anger, most people see these things as bad because they are too personally invested in the story in their heads. But the seeker of truth sees these things as vehicles to higher spiritual growth, and that is what they actually are. Every negative experience is merely designed specifically for you to help you grow. But if you're too caught up in the victimhood identity, why is this thing happening to me? Well, then you'll stay stuck, and it will probably happen to you again. Because the universe is in no rush. You'll grow at the speed at which you'll grow. And whether that takes a long time or a short time, maybe it's out of your control, but maybe you do have the control to change it. Maybe you can change easier than you think. Perhaps it's just a habit that gets you caught in the drama. And that the moment you realize that you are the witness of these experiences and you identify with the experiences, well, then you realize that no experience can necessarily affect you in any way. That you are free already. Stop taking things so personally if you'd like to stop suffering. Because suffering only arises because of our identity. That is why they say ego is the devil. It's because who I believe I am is what creates all the suffering in my life. It creates all the problems. Because if I am someone, then I want this and I don't want that. And when I don't have what I want, I suffer. And when I have what I want, I suffer because what I wanted was temporary. And when I have what I don't want, I suffer as well. I really enjoy the Ram Dass quote where he said, "Life is not a problem for those who have no preferences." But the trick is really balancing our lower self with our higher self. The trick is not viewing any aspect of ourselves as an enemy. By rejecting any part of ourselves, we reject the whole. We create inner conflict. The only way to win the war with yourself is to not fight. And to not fight is to realize that what you might call your enemies are actually here to help you. And they may help you even more than what you might call your friends. Because in your enemies, the most valuable information is revealed. We must find love for ourselves, even the ugliest parts. Only then will we become whole and feel complete. Love is the answer, because when you love your enemies, you have none.